Hello and welcome. We're so glad you're here. In the Hebrew way of reading scripture, this week's Torah portion is called Ki Tetze. Today, we're diving into a really powerful sermon from Pastor Sugan Kim that unpacks the deep spiritual battle this portion calls us to. And it's a battle that doesn't happen out in the world, but right inside our own hearts.
So to really get a handle on this week's portion, we actually have to take a quick step back to the last one, Shofetim. It leaves us with a really critical question. Who is your judge? I mean, who really sits on the judgment seat of your life?
You know, Pastor Kim's sermon points out something we all do. We let our own ego, our ta, climb up onto that judge's seat. The second we feel wronged, what's our first reaction? It's usually anger, right? A desire to get even. We judge everything based on our own, very limited point of view.
To bring this point home, Pastor Kim shares a personal story. His bicycle was stolen, and he actually saw the young guys who did it on a CCTV camera. The police were all ready to go after them, but right there he had a choice. Does he become the judge and the prosecutor, or does he trust in a higher justice? He chose to drop the charges.
And that internal struggle, that moment of choosing to forgive when everything in you wants to condemn, that's the real preparation. It's about willingly stepping down from the judge's seat so that we can finally enter the real battlefield that Ki Tetze is all about.
So this idea of a real battlefield brings us right to the heart of our first section. What does it even mean when the scripture says, when you go to war? Let's unpack the meaning of this week's portion, Ki Tetze.
You see, the phrase itself is literally a call to action. It's not a polite suggestion, it's a command. Ki Tetze means when you go out, and it's specifically about going out to fight a war.
Okay, but that raises a huge question, doesn't it? If the whole point of the last section was learning not to be the judge in our external conflicts, like with the stolen bicycle, then what war are we actually supposed to be fighting?
And this is where the sermon just flips the whole thing on its head. The war isn't about fighting other people. Ki Tetze is about the spiritual war that is raging inside every single one of us, the battleground of our own minds, our own hearts, our own souls.
And what's so powerful is that this internal war isn't just some vague, fuzzy idea. Nope, it has specific enemies. The sermon uses this incredible allegory from the conquest of Canaan, identifying 7 nations that represent these spiritual strongholds inside of us. So we're not talking about ancient history here. Think of these as symbolic names for the deep-seated issues we all face. You've got fear that paralyzes you, pride that resists authority, and shame that just weighs you down. This is the enemy army we are called to go out and confront. Let's just break a couple of these down. When we fight the Hittite spirit, that's the spirit of fear, the one that paralyzes us with doubt, we're called to fight back by advancing with a bold and courageous faith.
Or how about the Amorite spirit? Well, that's pride. It's that voice inside that says, I know best, the one that resists any authority but its own. And we fight that by choosing humility, by submitting our own will to God's purpose. And maybe one of the toughest enemies for so many of us is the Jebusite spirit, the spirit of shame. It just oppresses and condemns and keeps you small. The only way to win that battle is to fully step into the joy and the freedom that comes from grace and forgiveness. But here's the thing, winning this internal war isn't just about destroying the enemy. The ultimate goal is something way more beautiful, a complete transformation. And that brings us to this incredible metaphor for the whole process, moving from a captive to a bride. The sermon finds this process laid out so beautifully in a law from Deuteronomy. It describes what an Israelite soldier was supposed to do if he captured a beautiful woman in battle and wanted to marry her. This ancient law becomes this perfect picture of our own spiritual journey. To become a bride of Christ, we're just like that captive. The first thing we have to do is recognize the clothes of our old life, all the worldly systems, the old habits, the unhealed hurts that we're wearing. Then we have to actively choose to take them off. It's only then that we can put on our new identity. And this right here is a key takeaway from the sermon. God is calling to us. He has this new identity, a beautiful wedding garment, just waiting for us. But the choice to take off the old, dirty, tattered clothes of our past, that responsibility is ours. Now, it's so important to remember that this act of changing our clothes isn't a one-and-done kind of deal. It is the very start of a lifelong journey, a constant daily battle. And this final section is a reminder that this war is never really over. Scripture tells us to continually clothe ourselves in our new identity. The daily fight to keep those new clothes clean, to resist the urge to put the old ones back on, that is the spiritual war of Ki Tetze.
So, as we wrap all this up, the sermon leaves every one of us with a very personal, very direct challenge. The war is within you. The enemies have names. So, which territory in your heart will you go out and fight for today?
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep and challenging journey today. We really hope this was a meaningful exploration for you, and we'd love for you to subscribe for more explainers just like this one.